My name is Clara Monroe, and at 36, I have learned that endings don't always arrive with sirens. Sometimes they slip through the speaker of your phone at 2:03 p.m., steady as a metronome, and ask you to listen while your life is rearranged without you. The coffee on my kitchen counter had gone from warm to indifferent. The house hummed the way it does in the middle of the day, fridge motor, distant lawnmower, the soft drip from the leaky faucet I kept meaning to fix. I just stepped out of a video meeting, still half in that polite voice you use for clients, when my phone lit up with Ryan Holt. "Hey," I answered casual, because that's how we were. 3 years in, 2 toothbrushes by the sink, his shoes always ending up in the wrong corner of the hall. "Clara," he said, and I knew before he told me. His voice had that flattish, super-aware quality of a person about to detonate a truth and pretend it's a kindness. "I need to tell you something." The house held its breath for me, as if waiting to see whether I would. "I'm moving in with Tessa," he said. We're having a baby." There was a small sound in my kitchen. Later, I understood it was the coffee mug tapping the counter when my hand loosened. In the moment, it felt like the noise a wall makes when a hairline crack appears. "Congratulations," I said. It fell out of me like a reflex I didn't know I had. The word left a strange aftertaste, metallic like blood nicked by your own teeth. "That's it? Clara, please, say something." What did he want? A sermon? A scream? A negotiation? The truth was already standing in my kitchen, hands in its pockets like a guest who'd arrived early. I stared at the little magnet calendar on the fridge, all the squares we had written on, Ryan's certification exam, my mother's checkup, the road trip we planned for late spring. The ink had looked permanent then. "What else is there to say?" I asked. "You've made your decision." "I thought—" He faltered like a man who had rehearsed this line and now couldn't remember his cue. "I thought you would fight for me, for us." A laugh rose and died in my throat. "You're having another woman's child, Ryan, with Tessa. People make mistakes." "You don't move in with a mistake," I said almost gently. "You pack for a choice." On some other day, on some other timeline, I might have asked how long, or when it began, or why he thought we were a bridge he could cross and recross without paying the toll. Today, curiosity felt like charity I didn't owe. He exhaled, long and unsteady, and I imagined him pacing in the parking lot of the gym where he spent so many late sessions. Tessa Lane's name flashed through my head in slideshow images, her bright white shoes, the way she touched people's shoulders when she talked, the tag on Ryan's post when he passed that certification exam, @TessaTrainsYou, 3 clapping emojis and a lightning bolt. "Clara," he tried again, "please don't do anything drastic." "I won't," I said. I meant it in a way he didn't understand. We ended the call. No goodbye, just the click of a line learning how to be empty. A bird flicked past the window, brief and uninterested. I stood in the quiet and listened to the slow leak from the faucet, measured, relentless. A part of me wanted to crumple on the tile and sob until my ribs hurt. Another part, the older, colder animal, took my hands and set them on the counter. "Not yet," it said, "not here." I took a breath and opened the drawer where we kept the small things that make a life run. A roll of duct tape, spare keys, the booklet with the Wi-Fi password I'd written in a looping, hopeful hand. "Love you 5G. I almost laughed. Then I pulled out my laptop. The browser remembered the shape of my days, so did I. Tabs bloomed like petals, bank account, streaming services, the security system dashboard, the car lease, my car from before him, that he just drove more often. The gym membership I added him to because couples who sweat together stay together. Wasn't that the line? It was shocking how square and reasonable each. "Are you sure?" Button looked. I clicked through each one, methodical, an accountant of absence. On the bank site, I removed Ryan Holt as an authorized user. Confirm. The screen refreshed and returned to a version of my finances that was mine again. On the streaming accounts, I signed out of all devices and changed the passwords to phrases that would mean nothing to him, but kept a quiet little promise to me. "I will sleep, June light, house is mine." The security system let me rename door codes. I deleted R. Holt 428 and watched the numbers go gray, unalive. It felt like erasing chalk from a dark board after a long class. There were larger gestures to make. 3 weeks ago, he had slipped a ring box across our dining table. No diamond, not yet. Just a slender band he said was a promise and a placeholder. We were timeline people, he said, practical and forward. He wanted to wait until after his exam to buy the real ring. I hadn't realized I was holding my breath for the rest of the gesture. I found the receipt, called the jeweler. Yes, within the return window, the woman said with practiced kindness. We can take it back today. I put the box in my bag and looked around. The house had not moved. The stool by the island was still a little crooked. A pair of his running socks lay abandoned by the back door, gray with road dust. For a moment, fury crossed my mind like lightning, bright, useless, already gone. I picked up the socks and dropped them in the box I'd started in the hallway. Ryan, kitchen, hall. It felt saintly, my labeling. Vengeful people throw things. I sorted. I drove to the jeweler and passed the band across the glass. The woman's eyes flicked to my face, to the address on the receipt, then back to the band. I'm sorry, she said in a tone that could mean anything. I nodded. The refund hit my card. Numbers rebalanced themselves as if this were a simple equation. Subtract one ghost, add one account corrected. Back home, the afternoon drifted toward evening, without the usual punctuation of his text. On my way, need anything? The house pulsed with the memory of him, the way a room holds the shape of a heavy piece of furniture after you've dragged it away. I moved through the absences. In the bedroom, his cologne had a top note of citrus and a second note of denial. I opened the window. Air entered like a new thought. At 5:41, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, then another. This one a text, blue bubble, unfamiliar. It's me. Tessa needed me to turn in my key to the gym. I'll come by later for my stuff. Don't make this hard, Clara. I stared at the word hard until it blurred. There was a time he'd used that word to mean effort we made together. Now it sounded like an accusation, a preemptive complaint filed by a man who had never folded a fitted sheet. I typed and deleted half a dozen replies. Your things will be boxed. Text me tomorrow, then put the phone face down. The part of me that wanted to explain, to be civil and symmetrical, was the same part that had let small lines slide for months because sliding was easier than speaking. I poured water into a glass and held the cool, honest cold to my throat. It was only then, when the list was done and the tabs closed and the labels aligned squarely on the cardboard, that the ache arrived. It came not as a wave, but as a low tide that revealed what had always been under the surface. The mornings when he left earlier and earlier, the half-truths about late sessions and overtime, the kindness that started to feel like a bribe I was paying to keep us from breaking. The mind is a careful archivist. It saves the little red flags in a folder called Later. Now Later emptied itself onto my kitchen table. I sat, because standing seemed like a lie. I pressed my palms against the wood and told myself the simplest thing. It happened. It happened. It happened. Naming a wound is the first way you stop it from owning you. Outside, a car door slammed. A neighbor called to their dog. The sky did that blue to ink shift that makes everything look more honest. I pictured Ryan's car in the driveway, the one I had paid to service last month when his throttle body light came on. He'd thanked me with a kiss and a promise to book that road trip. Promises age fast when oxygen hits them. I turned off the kitchen light and the house recalibrated to dusk, shadows moving into their appointed places. As I passed the window, I glanced toward the driveway. His car sat there under the maple, hood speckled with pollen, patient as a lie. I let my hand rest on the sill. It'll be gone by morning, I said aloud, to no one and to everyone. The mug, the cardboard box, the woman I was last week. My voice sounded calm again. There was a quiet kind of mercy in it, the sort you give yourself when you finally realize you don't have to hold what someone else has already dropped. The faucet clicked once and fell still. I tightened it with 2 fingers. The drip stopped. The house exhaled. I didn't expect him that fast. By 6:30, the day had folded itself into a gray hush. The sky looked metallic, the kind that threatens rain but never decides. I had just finished stacking his boxes by the door when the bell rang. The sound startled me less than it should have. There's a tone people use when they know a doorbell will ring before it does. That day, the silence had been rehearsing for him. Through the peephole, Ryan Holt, dripping from a drizzle that must have started on his drive. 2 suitcases, a plastic bag slung over his shoulder like a confession. I kept the chain on the door. "Clara," he said, voice hoarse, "can we talk?" He looked smaller somehow, like the air had leaked out of him. The clean gym shirts, the careful hair, gone. Rain had soaked his hoodie. He shivered, and my brain, traitor that it was, remembered how he hated being cold. "About what?" I asked. Tessa, she kicked me out." I waited. The silence between us was the length of our entire relationship, stretched thin. He swallowed. "She says she needs time, that she's not ready for me to move in yet, that the baby, she's not sure anymore." The word baby landed between us like glass. "Ryan," I said, careful, "you made your choice this morning. I'm just honoring it." His hand tightened on the suitcase handle. "You can't just shut me out like this. I'm still me." "That's debatable," I murmured. Rain hit the porch roof harder now, 1,000 soft accusations. "Please, Clara, just for tonight. I need a place to figure things out." I looked at the chain across the door, thin but steady. There was a time when I'd have taken it off without thinking. That reflex was gone. "I think you should go back to Tessa," I said, "or to your family, or to whoever told you this was a good idea." He pressed a hand to the door frame, his voice cracking. "She lied to me, Clara, about everything. She said it was ours, then she said she wasn't sure. I don't even know what's real anymore. I could have said 100 things. You're not the victim here. You started the lie." Instead, I said the only truth left. "That sounds like something you'll need to figure out without me." He flinched like I'd hit him. "You're really done?" "I was done when you called," I said. "This is just me catching up." The rain had picked up. Water dripped from his hair onto his jacket, small dark constellations. I watched one slide down to his wrist, cling there, then fall. The part of me that used to reach for him stood perfectly still. "You're heartless," he whispered. I met his eyes through the narrow crack. "No, just tired." I closed the door. The chain clicked back into place. He banged once, twice, then silence. Footsteps retreating, then the whine of his car starting. I leaned my head against the door, counted to 10, then longer. The quiet that followed didn't feel empty, it felt exact. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and let myself sit. My phone buzzed once. A text from an unknown number. "You'll regret this." I deleted it. Outside, the porch light flickered, caught between wanting to burn and wanting to rest. I decided to leave it on. That night, I lay in bed and listened to the rain trace its pattern across the windows. For the first time in months, I didn't check if someone was coming home. At 2 a.m., I woke to stillness so complete it felt like a verdict. I walked through the house barefoot, just to feel it, the ownership of space, the echo of my steps, the luxury of being the only one accountable for the mess or the order. By the time dawn pressed its first thin stripe of light across the blinds, the rain had stopped. The driveway was empty. His car was gone. The house smelled faintly of wet wood and lemon cleaner. I brewed coffee, opened the back door, and let the morning in. For a moment I thought I heard tires at the corner, then nothing. The faucet, newly tightened, stayed silent. I took a sip, closed my eyes, and whispered it again, the sentence that had become my armor. "You made your choice, Ryan. I'm just honoring it." And with that, Thursday was finally over. 2 days later, the quiet started to feel staged, like the world had agreed to pause and see if I'd break first. Then the phone calls began. First came an unknown number at 8:12 a.m. I ignored it. Then another, then 3 more, each leaving a voicemail that started with silence and ended with a man's uneven breathing. By noon, my text notifications stacked up like debris. "Ryan, I made a mistake. Please talk to me." "Ryan, she lied about everything." "Ryan, I don't have anywhere to go." By the 4th one, I stopped reading. It was like watching someone drown in the same shallow water they'd chosen to jump into. At 1:45, the next number belonged to his sister. "Clara, it's me. What the hell is going on? Ryan's sleeping in his car. He says you locked him out." "I didn't lock him out," I said. "He moved out." She sighed, the long, self-righteous kind. "He made a mistake. You can't just abandon him like this." I looked around my spotless living room. The space we'd shared, now neat again, unnervingly calm. "He abandoned himself," I said. "Come on," she pressed. "You know him. He gets lost sometimes. Tessa manipulated him." "I'm sure she did, but she didn't make him pack." A long pause, then the soft threat of a moral lecture. "He's family, Clara. You're supposed to care." "I did," I said quietly. "That's the problem." When she hung up, I sat back on the couch and watched the rain stripe the windows. The conversations all followed the same choreography. The disbelief, the blame, the implied obligation. Everyone wanted me to be the safety net Ryan had cut himself free from. The next day, his mother called. Her voice carried that familiar tone of wounded propriety. Clara, I just want to understand how a woman like you can be so cold. He's the father of a child. I closed my eyes. He's the father of her child, Mrs. Holt. She sniffed, audibly insulted. He says he's sorry. He says he was confused. I almost laughed. Confusion isn't a defense. It's just cowardice with better lighting. The line went silent long enough for me to picture her in her kitchen. Floral apron, cordless phone. The look she gave me the first time I met her, when she asked if I cooked much. I thought you'd be better than this, she said finally. I thought he would be too, I replied, and hung up. That evening, I did what I should have done weeks ago. Gathered every remnant of him still lingering. The sweatshirt over the dining chair, the shaving kit in the bathroom, the box of protein powder in the pantry. I stacked them neatly in a corner, labeled with blue painter's tape. Ryan, clothes, personal, leftovers. There was something satisfying about the geometry of it, closure in straight lines. As I sealed the last box, the phone buzzed again. A text from a number ending in 77. I knew it wasn't his. Tessa, he's ruining my life. Hope you're happy. I stared at it for a long moment. Her profile photo was still the same. Sunshine smile, gym tank, effortless glow. The kind of woman who photographs like she's never been wrong about anything. I typed back once. You built this life together. I'm just watching the walls fall. Then I deleted it before sending. Some truths don't deserve an audience. That night, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving. It tasted sharp, like regret with a hint of blackberry. As I drank, I thought about the months leading up to that phone call. How often Ryan had said, I owe everything to you. I used to think it was gratitude. Now I realized it was dependence dressed up as devotion. I had funded his certification course, paid the lease on his car, celebrated every milestone he reached while quietly covering the bills he forgot. I'd built him into the man who left me. And somehow his family still called me ungrateful. Around midnight, I checked social media for the first time in days. Tessa's latest post was a filtered sunset over a messy kitchen counter. Caption: Some people only love you when you're useful. Hundreds of comments. Hearts, sympathy emojis, vague affirmations. The digital applause for a tragedy she wrote herself. I scrolled past it, poured another glass, and opened my notes app. Not to write to her or him, but to myself. Just one sentence. Do not chase closure from people who keep breaking what they touch. It looked too clean on the screen, so I added, let them feel the absence. The next morning, I heard tires on gravel. Through the window, a familiar shape. Ryan's sister's SUV. She stepped out, crossed her arms, and waited. I met her at the porch, arms folded to match. She handed me a letter, folded, sealed, addressed in Ryan's uneven handwriting. He asked me to bring this, she said, eyes wet but calculating. He's not eating. He's not himself. I held the envelope without opening it. He is himself, I said. That's the problem. When she left, I placed the letter in the box labeled MISC and sealed it shut with tape. For the first time since that phone call, the house smelled like coffee and rain instead of chaos. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was earned. And somewhere in the distance, in a parking lot or a borrowed couch or a room he couldn't afford, Ryan Holt was finally sitting with the consequences that used to belong to me. It was a Tuesday, when the silence finally broke in the most ordinary place, the gym I'd started going back to after weeks of avoiding anywhere that smelled like his memory. Morning light cut through the front windows in long gold bars, catching the motes of chalk dust floating over the squat racks. It smelled like sweat and disinfectant and routine, exactly what I needed. I was mid-set, headphones in, mind quiet, when a shadow fell across the mirror. I didn't need to turn around. My stomach knew before my eyes did. Clara. His voice thinner, raw. I lowered the weights, stood straight, and caught his reflection. Ryan Holt, 10 pounds lighter, eyes rimmed red, a face half his age ago. I took out one earbud. You shouldn't be here. I tried calling. I know. He took a step closer, voice trembling. Please, just 5 minutes. I looked around the room. The treadmills hummed. A girl laughed at a trainer's joke. Life went on. 3, I said. Clock's ticking. He exhaled like he'd been underwater. Tessa lied to me, he started. She said the baby wasn't mine. Then she said it was. She's married, Clara. I didn't know. Her husband, he found out everything. The words spilled like broken glass, clumsy, painful, scattered. So you didn't just lose me, I said evenly. You lost your alibi. His jaw clenched. You think this is funny? No, I said, just predictable. He rubbed his face with both hands, pacing. You don't understand. I didn't plan this. I was confused. That's your favorite word lately. I loved you. You loved convenience, I said. You loved being adored, being rescued, being forgiven. He stared at me like he didn't recognize the voice coming from me. Maybe he didn't. I didn't sound like the woman who used to wait for his texts, who made sure there were groceries in the fridge for him after his workouts. I sounded like someone who'd finally read the fine print. I made a mistake, he said. Ryan, you made a series of decisions, I corrected. Mistakes are when you spill coffee on your shirt. What you did took planning. He flinched, then whispered, I miss you. Something inside me softened for a second. Not sympathy exactly. Recognition. The echo of what we once were. Then the image sharpened. Me on the other end of that call, his voice calm as he told me he was leaving. No, you don't, I said. You miss the version of me that kept you from feeling small. The gym around us blurred. Just the two of us, ghosts arguing under fluorescent light. He tried one last time. If you could just give me another chance. I cut him off. To do what? Redeem yourself? Rewrite it so you can sleep better? I'm not your absolution, Ryan. He stood still, chest heaving. For a moment, I thought he might yell. Instead, he said softly, You're colder than I ever thought. I smiled, the kind that doesn't reach your eyes. No, I'm just done warming people who leave me out in the rain. I picked up my towel and turned toward the locker room. As I passed him, I caught his reflection again, that lost, panicked look of a man realizing the story no longer centered on him. Clara, he called after me. I didn't stop. In the mirror's edge, I saw him standing alone in that sea of noise, trying to decide whether to chase or let go. He didn't move. The door swung shut behind me with a soft thud. Inside the locker room, the air was cool, clean, ordinary. I sat on the bench and breathed until the tremor in my hands stilled. Outside, I could hear the faint rhythm of weights hitting rubber mats, the hum of life carrying on. For the first time, I didn't feel haunted. I felt separate. And in that strange, echoing calm, a sentence came to me. Small, simple, final. Some goodbyes don't echo because the silence swallows them whole. When I left, I didn't look back. 3 months later, I stopped counting the days since he left. Time had folded itself into neat, breathable segments again. Coffee before sunrise, emails, errands, silence that belonged to me. The storm had moved on. What lingered was only the scent of wet earth and something like freedom. I heard about him the way you hear about distant relatives, through whispers carried by people who still believed gossip was a form of charity. Apparently, Tessa's baby had arrived earlier than expected. Apparently, DNA doesn't lie. Apparently, Ryan Holt was now a father. And apparently, that truth came with lawyers. Tessa's husband had filed for divorce the moment the story cracked open. He demanded a custody test, and when the results came back confirming the child was Ryan's, everything shattered exactly the way it was destined to. Tessa lost her apartment, her clients, her golden facade. Ryan, in a desperate act of moral CPR, offered to do the right thing. Her response, according to mutual friends, was to laugh. You can't even afford your own rent, she told him. What are you going to offer a baby? Now he was back living with his parents. Same childhood bedroom, same faded blue curtains, same patterns. Working part-time at a local hardware store, delivering mulch and garden soil to people whose lives had stayed intact. I never saw it directly, but I didn't need to. There's a tone to the messages people send when they think you still care. He's been through a lot, they say, meaning shouldn't you forgive him now? Forgiveness, I've learned, is a kind of debt. You owe it to no one. One morning in early spring, I stopped by the courthouse to sign documents for my freelance business. New license, new address, everything under my own name. I parked in the underground lot, locked my car, and as I stepped into the elevator lobby, I saw him. Ryan. Standing across the street outside the courthouse doors, a stroller beside him. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. There were deep crescents under his eyes, his hair grown out, unshaven. He was holding a manila envelope, the kind that holds custody paperwork or payment receipts. He saw me almost instantly. His expression shifted, surprise, then shame, then something more complicated. I froze for a second, not from fear, but from the strange awareness that I was no longer angry. The baby in the stroller started fussing. Ryan bent over, his hand awkward as he adjusted the blanket. He murmured something soft, the voice of a man trying too late to learn gentleness. When he looked up again, I was still there. Our eyes met across the distance. He mouthed something, maybe I'm sorry, maybe help. I couldn't tell. I lifted my chin slightly in acknowledgement. Not forgiveness, just recognition. Then I turned and walked inside. The door closed behind me, and that was that. A week later, I went to brunch with Noah Pierce, the architect I'd met at a friend's gathering. He was the kind of calm I used to think didn't exist. Quiet humor, no need to prove himself, the confidence of someone who built things instead of breaking them. We laughed about nothing and everything. When I mentioned that my ex used to critique the way I cut my pancakes, Noah smiled. You cut them fine, he said, as though the phrase itself were an act of gentleness. It wasn't about replacing anyone. It was about remembering what ease felt like. That afternoon, as we walked past the courthouse plaza, I caught a glimpse of the same bench where I'd seen Ryan days earlier. It was empty now. The air smelled faintly of lavender from the flower beds. For the first time in a long while, I didn't imagine him there. People talk about revenge like it's fire, like it consumes or warms depending on who holds the match. But sometimes revenge is simpler. It's just not showing up when they expect you to. It's silence instead of spectacle. It's peace instead of proof. I didn't destroy Ryan Holt, I just stopped saving him. He wanted a new life. He got one, just not the kind he imagined. That night I made tea instead of coffee. The house hummed, steady and alive. My reflection in the window looked unfamiliar, lighter, sharper, free. Outside, the maple tree we planted together shed the last of its leaves, covering the driveway in quiet gold. I stood there a long time, cup warm in my hands, until I realized something gentle but certain. There would be no more phone calls, no more returns. Only mornings, only quiet, only mine.